Hello everyone, my name is Don Logston. I'm Cami's father. I'll explain all that in a moment.
So I think, obviously everyone doesn't have the, the full kind of movie picture to be able to sort of put this together. You mentioned music, so maybe where did your musical talent come from? Like, was this something you did as a kid?
Yeah,
like...
as a matter of fact, yes it was. I was 12, 13, and 14 years old when I started playing music and would continue playing to this day. When I was, without giving up your age, I can get around that. But no, when I was 17, her mother and I were good friends, and we ran around and buddied around together and got high and everything, and then we would do what people do in order to make a baby, and one was made, straight like that. Hey, but listen, I was in a lot of trouble, and so was her mom, and so we knew when we did what we did, we wasn't going to be able to raise the child in case one was made, and one was made. So as soon as she was born, she was put into the foster care system, and I went to jail, and her mom went to the mental hospital, and we never had, and from then on, we've never had any contact with her at all. Neither one of us had, actually. She was, at 4 years old, she was adopted by the Alberts, and that was it. I was severed, and so was her mother, severed from her for good. Never again to have anything to do with her, or her mother anyway, and then in 2016, through a private investigator, she managed to find me. Now, at the time she found me, I was in the same predicament I've been in since I've been on this planet. In trouble. Big time. I was on the run from parole, the run from probation. I was in debt with gang members. I was on drugs. And I was in, pretty much I was in the dumpsters, you might say. That's the truth of the situation. And when she appeared, that was an opportunity and an open door that you just don't pass up. And this was a chance to get to know my daughter, and doing so, we just continued on together. It's going on 2 years and 3 months now, and we've been together just about every day ever since, and we just straight out stayed together with all this. And I plan to stay together with her for about the rest of my life, however much longer I have it. On that, I don't really know what the answer is, because, look. Yeah. Now, keep in mind, I'll be done. Listen, I'm not the kind of person that was a clean-cut, straight-laced kind of a guy at all. I was exactly the opposite. And when I ran into her being totally different than her, it would seem rather amazing that we could get along and actually stay together. But through the music and through just being together and getting to know each other and getting along with each other the best that we could, it's been 2 years and 3 months now. And I hope this will continue on for another 5 or 6 years. Thank you very much.
So Cami, tell us a little bit about sort of your musical background. Also, you're both lefties, correct? No, you're a lefty. He's a righty.
This is strange. She's left-handed. My older brother is left-handed.
That's right.
And it seemed to me like I was, for a part of me, was going to be left-handed, but I do write with my right hand, so the government would claim that I'm right-handed.
So tell us a little bit about sort of your musical story. I mean, you were adopted at 4.
Yeah. I remember being in foster care because I was moved around kind of a lot for different reasons, urgently sometimes. I think I was introduced to a piano in the second foster home that I was in, though. I was told that I liked the piano. I think I got very lucky to be adopted into a home by the time I was 4 that had a piano, because that wasn't necessarily a guarantee. I was also really lucky that though my adoptive parents weren't musical, my dad liked classic rock or Dick Clark or whatever, but they weren't musical. They knew I had this interest, and so they did so many cool things lesson-wise. They got a little box so that my feet could reach the sustain pedal, and so I started to play music and kind of compose, but I really struggled with learning and remembering things. So for me, really, every note was sort of a color, and I would paint with music. Years later, my mom said, "You know something? You can't take a piano on your back. You really need to learn guitar." And I was like, "Guitar? what? It wasn't even my idea. I don't know why she even thought of it. So then she got me this guitar, and it would hurt, my fingers, it was terrible. And I struggled, but I just started learning guitar. And, but I really felt like there was something bizarre about this music thing, because I didn't really learn, I didn't really practice, but I had a relationship to it, and I thought maybe it's genetic. Maybe somewhere my birth family, and I'm really lucky because it's very different from everyone who's adopted. My adopted family is incredible. They're wonderful, supportive, loving people. And I also happen to know my birth maternal cousins and aunt and things like that. And then, because she passed away, but I know a lot of her family who happened to be Jewish, and they grew up in Beverly-Will and were a part of helping the Jewish system kind of evolve in Los Angeles, the first kosher meatpacking business ever in LA. It was like, they have a lot of really neat history. Zionists help with Israel. So that was my maternal side. And then my paternal side, they were all the musicians. And I just had this weird sense about it. And then later when I was able to find Dawn and figure that out, even when I got to UCLA and I was there for music and I didn't really think I belonged, like it was just all the work and the reading and stuff. But ultimately everything that happened, all the things along the path, whether it was music or working in Judaism or working with the homeless women, creating programs for homeless women to go and get coffee on the bus together. That was really fun. Or I wrote a program for rehabilitation for the men's correctional facility randomly one year because I was bored, thought it'd be cool, and then like passed it along to the LA Police Department. They were like, this is great, do you want to do it? Like, we'll walk you through the prison, you can see what it's like. And I had heard and read some stories that Don he's been in over 7 of the prisons actually, right? Starting since how old were you when you started?
Well, I was 9 years old when I first started going in and out, but this would continue on all the way through the juvenile hall days to the camp, and then finally to YA, and then prison from there, and just went on and on.
On and on for like 30 or something years or something like that.
Yeah, actually, when you was the only reason why it finally stopped, to be honest with you. Because if it wouldn't have been for that, I would have continued on the run, and I wouldn't be out of trouble right now, no matter what. So I might as well just say it out loud, thanks to you, you know, got my life back.
Gosh, I have so many questions. I mean, I know the story, and it's really, it's so fascinating. I'm curious, what does it feel like to be together? Like, what are the words, or what's the way that you describe both of you?
It feels very filling, because there was a serious absence when. You got to realize, I knew when she was born, I wasn't in a position to raise her at all. I knew that when I went to bed with her mother. I straight out knew that. I was already back in trouble again. I was in custody. There was nothing I could do about it. But I knew this, though. So even though there was an absence until the year 2016 when she finally found me, yeah, there was absence, all right. And then when she did finally find me, it was a very filling feeling. So I just hung on to it.
I felt the same way. Very filling. Very filling.
And tell us a little bit about playing music together. I mean, that has to be, especially for 2 gifted musicians, as you both are, to be able to create. I can't imagine I just can't.
I never played with that crunch sound ever. And then Dawn, like in the parks. So there's a little bit of interesting things. So the first 3 weeks of our meeting, Don was living exactly how he wanted, exactly what he knew, and I was doing my thing. And I would come and go, take notes. I had a journal. I wrote when he got high, how long he'd get high, when it would come down, what he was like. And then I would go and get the highest grade coffee with extra caffeine and espresso. And because he didn't ever really have electricity, I went and got a car battery and a backpack with all these different coffees and espressos from all these drug countries, like Mexico, and really like all these countries that were Colombia. But I packaged everything in these little white baggies and brought it over and had him touch and lick and smell as he was coming down, and we would make craft coffee together, like really high end. And that was one of the creative kind of fun bonding moments that we had. And then we would go to parks because he loves being outside. So let's just clarify that. So there's a demographic of homelessness. We know with the fires it's terrible. People are losing their lives, they're losing everything. And then there are some people who struggle because of the mental wellness spectrum, and they prefer to be outside, or they like a certain sense of freedom. And so then there's that. And so in my mind, there's a homeless demographic, and there's an umbrella concept of how we might be able to implement and provide solution-solving suggestions, and then everyone can kind of do their own thing, right? And we hope that as a community and as a culture and as a country, we can come together with these different ideologies or solutions in different areas. So, but for Don, he has this incredible, incredible perspective, and he loved being outside. That was freedom to him. Prison was a bed. It was food. It was what he had to play music. He could get drugs there, he'd have friends there. People knew him. I mean, he was the top band leader and one of the only inmates for the 30 years he was in and out for most of the petty crime theft that he would do to live his lifestyle. He was one of the only inmates who could play with every race, because it really is segregated that way. And he was sort of used music as his way to do his thing, and he was safe and protected. I mean, all the movies and the shows, we watched Orange is the New Black, by the way. And I would ask Don, he'd be like, oh, they know. They got it right. Like, that's really real, you know, and it's fun for us to like bond and like see these things. I loved it. We actually even met the girl when we went to New York, because we got flown to New York. We met the girl. It was so cool. Anyways, so I just had a side note that. But so yeah. So what did you ask me?
I asked
here for a second.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was nice that you turned me on to the coffee to get off with the speed and the cocaine. But because you were my daughter, I wanted to get sober so that I could live with you and so that I could get to know you, because I never knew you in my life. And then, you know, once I was sober and sort of just stayed that way, yeah, I got comfortable with being sober for the first time. I mean to repeat that part.
Yeah.
For the first time. Since I was a child, that was the first time I've ever lived without drugs. And you're
so that was the first 3 weeks, parks. So he would play music in the park, and I just would film him, and I thought, oh my gosh, I gotta learn how to do that. I need to. So every day I've been practicing to try to get there. But so playing music together, that's been really thrilling and very growing. After those 3 weeks, Don actually decided to turn himself in. I didn't say, if you do this, then. He really did it himself, I think. We even went on a Saturday to turn him. He was walking in to turn himself in, and they were like, oh no, sorry, we're busy, you have to come back. And I'm like, see, Don, you can't even get arrested anymore. Like, what's going on? We sat down on the floor of the police station, because I thought, shit, if we leave, what if he changes his mind, right? So we sit down, I'm like, what do we do? So we watched, what was that movie? It was so good.
You told me, you texted
Good
me.
Will Hunting.
Yes.
Oh, it was so good. And we watched it, and then there he went away. And so one thing to side note is, over there is this museum that is us, and later, when you're tired of hearing us talk, but you can ask questions soon in a second also, there are letters. So when he turned himself in, he had to do 90 days or something, 189, it was a lot. And I got a fake address next to where I was living by the Shakespeare Playhouse. And I wrote him 3 letters a day for the whole time. Like, even when I was driving my car back from Nashville, because I was there for a little while, all of the letters are there. He wrote me back. We had so much fun, but we didn't know then. Every single day, we never knew then what next. We just did it. And when he was released, it was like 6 or 5 in the morning, and I was there, like downtown, just waiting. And I didn't know which door he'd be released and if he'd even find me, because technology's kind of different, you know. He didn't even really know much about technology, and everything was unique and different and creative. So to bond together in a safe, unique way, and to introduce new things. What was your first? The frozen yogurt? Remember that?
Yeah.
Frozen yogurt was first. I mean, every day is like a first. And slowly over time, we acclimated. First, I created a false sort of homeless environment that Don really liked when he got out, because there really wasn't anywhere to go. We did try sober living home. So there was just a pivotal moment where I thought, you know, it's either gonna be me all or nothing. And it wasn't even really thought. It just was like, well, this is Don, like, we're gonna do this. I don't know what happened. And we've been together ever since. So even though he is technically free to go homeless in that way, where homeless is the home is our world, we have a unique home together, and we've been together, and we get to do this and play music and make breakfasts and eat dinner and do all that stuff. And my adoptive family invites him now, and he can come for Thanksgiving or whatever. And we're just like one big happy family. It's very cool.
I do want to open up to questions, but from the audience. But can you just tell us, I know it's in the film, but one of my sort of favorite moments that you shared with me, and that obviously I'm hoping you'll be okay to share with, you would leave a note when you would leave Don.
Oh, yes.
Can you tell everybody what you would do?
So it's over there. because of the rain and how nature is what it is, one of the things I realized is he was willing to go through the steps of probation, which he'd never really done before, and I can see why. Like, we would go every month, and we would drive all the way to Long Beach and then park and go to the police station. It was like really scary. I mean, it was intense. We'd meet this woman who had his whole life in her hand. His Olsen file was so high, and then now all of a sudden it's like they're gonna believe that all of a sudden he might just stop. So we would go to these meetings every month, and I was just an advocate. I mean, I felt like I was a shadow, an advocate, whatever, a daughter, just like a person, a human being there. What I decided to do is, because I knew his Olsen file of prison records were so high, I thought, well, let's just do a reverse packet and start to do it backwards and start building a different kind of file. A file of reconstruction, a file of, I don't like to use the word rehabilitation because it's not anything, it's just defining a new moment. And I took a note that just said that he was temporary homeless and he wasn't dangerous, he wasn't a danger to himself, but he was just himself. And I had an email, I go by Cami, my birth name, because that's sort of where we connect, and laminated it so that the rain wouldn't change it. And a lot of the notes that he has with my phone number, my whatever email or whatever, would all be laminated in the wallet, so that if anyone stopped him, there's some kind of something like a note that they know our story, because I mean they've done a lot. The police department in LA and in Long Beach have done so much to help me and allow me to support Dawn's choices in a different way. And even the judge was so kind, and I think it's not just me, it's not just Dawn, it's sort of like the whole universe working together to open doors and go, you know what, you have a voice, you are a person, you matter, and no matter what your past is, and it could be terrible, it could be almost terrible, whatever, you are choosing to step a different direction, and we're gonna let that happen. And they really let that happen, and I just think that that is part of the story, and it's amazing, so.
I'd like to open it up. Does anyone have a question or want to ask anything? Yeah.
Hi. I was wondering, during like some of the most difficult or challenging parts, what was something that you kind of like held on to that kept you going, like a belief or an idea that like picked you back up?
Thank you. That's a good question.
I will repeat the question, yes. That's my mom again. The question was, in the most difficult times, was there a thought or a sentiment or something in particular, I think the question was more for Cami, that kind of kept you going? I got a lot of texts from you, I could read those, but go ahead.
Maybe love. I mean, I don't know. I never wanted Don to be anything other than who he was and who he wanted to be. It was okay with me that he was doing heroin or crystal meth or sleeping outside. He already was doing that. It was already okay with me. So anything he was doing other than that, well, of course, that'd be awesome, right? So in my mind, in my like, whatever it is, my creative sort of different wired brain, I just thought it all is gonna be okay. He lived this long without me. He does his own thing. He's smart, he's intelligent, he's got his own way of doing things, wiring batteries together for electricity. I mean, he's got it going on fine. So really and I will say this, I did see him shoot up once. I've never seen it in my life, it's not even legal, and it was in this really split moment in the very beginning where he kind of hid to do his thing, to keep himself awake, and I said, don't hide. Slam that shit, do it. No, and I really said, because the truth, it's like if you hide, you're never gonna know what's the truth. But if you just are yourself and you do what is real to you, then you have choices because it's out there. And then you can choose. And so I think, I don't know, faith, love, I never really thought, I mean, it's so unique, right? Because I know that, I mean, I did not actually meet Don when he was doing heroin, and he's told me many times that heroin probably would have made it not work. He was on different types of drugs, and his withdrawal, he was a chooser to use. But earlier in his life, he was definitely an addict, addicted, and there's a very big difference. So he chose to wean off and stop the hard drugs, what was illegal, to protect me, to be safe, for us to be safe. And the scariest moment ever was one time, so there's this thing that I would do, and he was willing, and I would blindfold him so he wouldn't know where I was living. In fact, he still doesn't know our address. So and that would just be so that he doesn't wander off, or so that he doesn't show up unannounced if he decides one day I'm gonna go do drugs, whatever. He still has the freedom to go do what he wants. But there's an understanding between us, this sort of like sacred, free, creative trust. And one time he did, early on, like get on a bus and figure out his way and jump into his old life. Like it really did happen. And it was terrifying because I didn't know where he was and if I'd ever find him again. And I went to every single stop that I'd ever seen with him. Every homeless spot he ever went, every place he ever showed me, every place we ever went. And I kept driving over and over and over again that day, 5-6 hours. And in my heart, I was like, I'm gonna find this man. I love this man for some reason. And I did. At the end of the day, at night, I found him like back at that dwelling where he'd get his mail. He like went back into his old life for a minute. And you know what? Like there is nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't legal and it was dangerous. So if he wanted to continue that path, it was sort of that pivotal moment, and it was scary, and I will tell you it was scary. But I collected him up and I said, hey, we're gonna go back. We're gonna just press reset and see what happens. Blindfolded him and we started over. And he just never did that again. He never scared me again. And I think you just hold on to not expectation.
Yeah, I was just, if you don't mind me inserting myself into your thought process, I remember that, you know, I had a lot of anxiety. You know, I worried with you and sometimes for you, for Dawn, and especially in the, you know, the early weeks and months. You know, I think many of us were concerned about you because it's like, what is she getting herself into, and what is she diving into, and is it safe? But I think one of the things about you, which has been true probably your whole life, at least since I met you, oh my gosh, we're so old, 25 years ago, something like that. You have a very, you know, it's a very free spirit, you know, it's something that I really associate with like artists and musicians. Like you're very, whatever's gonna be. Asperger's. Yeah, also Asperger's, but no, but I think you have a real sense of surrender, and I think like that's something that, surrender in a positive way, like really to whatever the universe handed you and handed Dawn, and that was something I had to learn from you also in this process, to not over worry about Dawn. Any other questions? Yeah.
So I have a question. So at the beginning, when you just met, or were gonna meet Dawn, was there ever a worry that maybe this will be weird, maybe it won't actually work, or did you already have like a plan A and a plan B, and if it doesn't feel right, then I'll try again? Or...
Yeah, I had like 60 plans, I think backwards, and I'm so weird that I was like, nothing is gonna top my weirdness. I wasn't worried. I mean, I was thoughtful and respectful of the fact that maybe he wouldn't want to meet me, maybe, who knows. But I didn't have the future planned, which was kind of like the first time that ever was in my life. I actually really lived every moment. I think that's one of the things that's so amazing and like profound for me, is that we're living every moment, and these moments there's just not enough time. Like, it's unfair that our age gap is what it is, because I might outlive everyone and it's just terrible. Like, but Dawn's like, don't worry, I'll still be here, like, whatever, you know. So it's just, yeah, so I think that, no, I was probably just the weird one, and it was cool. There was no outcome. There was no expectation.
You were too cool sometimes about it. Like, I was really worried, and she was like, it's fine, whatever happens is fine. Was there a question right behind? Yeah.
Good question. Do you call Dawn Dad?
No. Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. I'm so touched. No.
The question was, does she call Dawn
No, I'm
Dad?
always correcting people, and then I'm like, don't correct them, it's not nice. But I do, because so my father and my dad was Bill Alpert. William Bill Alpert, because he raised me until he passed away at 54, which is so sad. But he raised me, and he helped me, and he supported me, and that, the definition of like a dad or a father, he earned that title, and he still has that. In fact, when we drive by Forest Lawn, I'm like, Dawn, let's wave to Bill. We all wave, right? But Dawn is my birth father, my biological father, my other half in a lot of ways, because he invented me, and there's something really special and unique about that. And it's really amazing to be able to live life backwards, kind of works for me, to be backwards about it, and to have my father and my family that has raised me and shaped me. This is really a true nurture experience, and then to get the nature. Because I didn't have that. I didn't get to wake up and feel this even if you don't like your family, or you don't get along with them or whatever, like you didn't really get the same hair color, like I really had no connection. I was very discombobulated. I was very lost, not like empty, sad lost, but just very like, I just felt so out of place all the time. I never knew who looked like me. I wanted to know. And I knew a lot about Mary Lou, my birth mother's story first, the Jewish side, and she went to UCLA like I did, and sadly for her, a triggered experience kind of pushed her into the mental wellness spectrum, and she wasn't very high functioning for a lot of her life. She tried, but and so it really makes sense to me when I met a lot of her side and then met Dawn's side later, what the appeal was. Because there is an appeal to every relationship that we make and every person that we meet. There's something that either is sort of juxtaposing or something that's really pulling us forward. And when you have this energetic connection, I call it the DNA memory line, but if whatever it is, like if you have this, you know, karmic or connection, you just follow it. And so, yeah, so my father's Bill Alpert and then Dawn's B.O.D.
Explain it.
We'll take one more question, and then I'm going to let you guys. I think you're going to play one more song. Okay, last question over here.
This makes me wonder, Dawn, do you have any other children?
No doubt, I knew you were going to ask that. No, the situation went like this. When I was 17 years old, I knew I would actually never be able to raise any kids because of the kind of life that I was living for myself. I was a drug addict and I was in serious trouble with the law. But I did want to contribute towards given somebody the probability, the odds of existing. So out of the 23 molecules of my own, and Mary Lou's 23 molecules is what made her. So I did do that, but I knew when I did it that I wasn't going to be able to raise her. I knew that. So to call us a reunion is not really correct, because we never knew each other in the first place. It's not like we knew each other and then I went to prison, which ripped us apart, and then we got back together at all. See, I never knew her in the first place. When she was born, I was already in juvenile hall on my way to YA, and that was it. It was over with already from the beginning. And then in 2016, and when she found me, that was the very first time I would have in order to get to know her at all. So, well, of course I'm going to give up the drugs and the way of life that I was living for a chance to get to know her. It was my one and only opportunity that I had in my lifetime to do this. So I did it. You know, that's the correct and true reason why I don't use drugs. It's not that I turned against drugs, because I ain't going to lie to you. I didn't do it that way. I did it a different way. I had an opportunity to get to know a woman that was actually my own daughter. In the name of, when you're dealing with it in terms of molecules. Now what she's saying is equally correct. She was raised by a different family, by a different man. So she calls that person her dad. And, you know, and although I am the other 23 molecules of her existence, we've only known each other for like 2 years. We're getting to, this will probably go on for I'll give myself probably 5 or 6 more years at best. Yeah, I can't even believe I made it to this point, as much dope as I've done. But I'm somehow, with her carrying on, I'm still alive somehow, however that may be, but I am. And I probably will stay alive for another 5 or 6 years, and I plan to just live it out with her, since it's either that or the streets. I don't really see that much of a big deal about living on the streets anymore if I got an opportunity otherwise. So I took the opportunity otherwise and stayed with my daughter.
You got 2 tents and a trailer and lots of burners.
Yeah, it does beat the streets. Yeah, no doubt about it. It's better than living on the streets.
I think you're going to do one more song for us, but I also just wanted to end, first of all, by thanking you both for sharing with us, and I hope that we'll have the opportunity... I hope we will have the opportunity at some point to see the film and for everybody to see it. And I just want to end and leave the stage by saying one of the most meaningful things that Dawn wrote when both of you wrote your story that we published. You know, he said that no one had ever loved him like this before. And I just think it's such a tremendous gift, not only that you've been able to give Dawn, but the gift that he's been able to give you, and the fact that you're sharing it with all of us. It's really, really inspiring, and this story is so amazing, and both of you are really so incredible. So thank you, and I will turn it back over to you.
make sure that everybody did get their questions in. You can always write us letters, we answer them. And we hope that you enjoyed this. It's a different type of thing. It's not for everybody, and it doesn't, for anyone who's thinking of fostering or adopting or knows someone who has or has an adopted family member or whatever. I mean, I feel connected to you, I get it, and we're open books, and if you want to take a look at the museum that is us after, that's cool, or whatever it is that you want to do, we'd love to say hi. Thank you, Mayim, so much for your moderating. It wasn't mediating, it was moderating, but they sounded similar. Thank you, Lia, for having us, Temple Beth Am, Rabbi, all of you for coming, for driving so far. Thought that we would end with, turn back up, I'll do it, I'll rock it.
No, the D string.
Oh, the D string. Oh, you're so smart. Thanks. You've been so kind to hear so much original music. I thought I'd close with something you might know. We have CDs here. Dawn came into a studio, a professional studio. We are selling them though, by donation, $1,000 or whatever you want to give. Just kidding. They are there. There's like all sorts of CDs, so and pictures, letters, court information, lots of cool stuff, paintings, and I think some people donated some blankets for those who may be in need, and that's really cool. If you're interested to continue doing that, I'm sure you have your own way, but sometimes Dawn and I go to homeless centers and shelters and we perform and we share our story, and we'd be happy to literally deliver right from one place to the other. We can come here another time and pick up things.
We should live underneath the same roof together. Oh, how peaceful it is, how peaceful it is, how peaceful it is that we should live together underneath the same roof. so